The story begins on a wind-scraped runway somewhere in the American West, where the desert still remembers the hoofbeats of cavalry long buried, and the dust tastes faintly of gun oil and sunburnt metal. It is early 1942, just months after Pearl Harbor, and the nation is relearning how to breathe. Factories that once built refrigerators now forge bombers. Farms give their sons to the airfields. And in this half-formed moment between fear and fury, a new machine begins to take shape. A machine that will carve its name into the war with 18 mouths of fire. Its silhouette is not yet a symbol. Not yet the low-flying predator that Japanese barges will come to fear. Not yet the roaring, forward-fisted creature whose nose bristles with so much steel it seems more weapon than aircraft. At this point, the B-25 Mitchell is only a workhorse with potential. A twin-engine bomber that engineers regard with the half-secret excitement of men who see in raw metal the promise of transformation. What drives this transformation is not ambition alone, but necessity, the pure, choking urgency of a war whose demands mutate by the month. In the Pacific, the United States faces an enemy fortified by island chains, defended by jungle, and protected by thousands of miles of ocean. The strategies that worked in textbooks do not work here. Altitude becomes vulnerability, bomb loads become luxuries, and pilots learn quickly that survival depends not on elegance, but on the blunt, unforgiving logic of firepower. The desert airfield hums with this new logic. Mechanics work without speaking, their hands moving with the instinct of men who know that silence is faster than shouting. They strip the bomber down to its bones, running palms across aluminum skin warmed to the temperature of a skillet. Every rivet is a small oath. Every replaced cable is a promise made to the men who will trust their lives to these wings. Nearby, the pilots gather in the shadow of the hangar. Each man's face carries the strange, conflicted calm of those who expect to be called into something perilous and irreversible. Cigarettes burn between fingers. The smell mingles with engine oil and fresh paint. Maps rest on a portable table, pinned at the corners with wrenches. Their edges flap in the breeze like restless birds. At the center of the group stands Captain Riley Hayes, a man whose quiet reputation stretches from one end of the base to the other. He is not the loudest, not the most decorated, not the one who commands rooms with theatrical confidence, but he is the one pilots watch when things turn uncertain. Hayes has flown missions in weather so violent that even memory seems reluctant to hold the details. He speaks sparingly, choosing words as if each one must justify its place. And when he looks at the early model B-25 parked before him, his expression carries the faint, analytical calm of a surgeon examining a patient who needs a procedure that has not yet been invented. The engineers approach with drafts, sketches, calculations smudged by graphite. They speak of nose weight, recoil patterns, strain on the fuselage. Hayes listens without interrupting. He sees not just a bomber, but a platform, something that could fight at treetop height, tear through barges, challenge enemy fighters with a ferocity unexpected from a medium bomber. The desert wind rolls a line of sand across the concrete as he steps closer to the nose, imagining what it could become. At this moment, the idea is simple, brutally simple. Replace elegance with aggression. Trade the bomb-aiming glass for armor. Fill the nose not with navigational instruments, but with machine guns, and then multiply them, again and again, until the airplane becomes something the Pacific has not yet seen, a flying battering ram that fires so much lead forward that the air itself seems to buckle beneath its fury. The vision is dangerous, radical, potentially impractical. But the Pacific doesn't reward caution. It rewards innovation sharpened by desperation. The transformation begins with the removal of the glazed bombardier's nose. The clear panels are unscrewed and lifted away, revealing internal ribs and wiring that had rarely seen daylight. One mechanic wipes sweat from his brow with the back of a grease-stained glove. Another measures the mounting rails where the first .50 caliber Brownings will sit. They speak in brief, technical phrases, punctuated by the metallic clink of tools on concrete. Hayes watches the process with an intensity that does not announce itself. His eyes trace the curve of the fuselage, imagining tracers slicing ahead, the recoil vibrating through the control column. He knows what low-altitude strafing feels like, the way treetops whip past inches below the wings, the way smoke from burning barges climbs like twisted prayer from the riverbanks. He also knows what it costs to attack too lightly armed, friends gone, missions aborted, targets half destroyed. The redesign is not excessive, it is overdue. Days stretch into nights. A skeleton of steel braces rises inside the nose, welded with the patience of craftsmen. Gun mounts are bolted in place. Ammunition feeds snake through the interior like metallic veins. The B-25 begins to look less like a bomber and more like a predator with its teeth bared. The testing phase is brutal. Engines roar, shaking dust into spirals. Mechanics stand behind concrete dividers as the newly installed guns fire for the first time. The sound is not a burst. It is a tearing, relentless growl that seems to split the air in two. The smell of cordite settles over the field in a thin, acrid veil. When the smoke clears, the barrels glow faintly with heat, their metal trembling like exhausted muscle. Hayes climbs aboard for the first full trials. The cockpit feels familiar and foreign at once, the same cramped space, the same vibration underfoot. But now the weight in the nose shifts the aircraft's personality. He straps in, pulls his oxygen mask close, and signals for the chocks to be pulled. The B-25 rolls forward, gathering speed until the wheels lift from the runway, and the desert drops away beneath the wings. Up here the sky looks clean, almost gentle. But Hayes knows the transformation was forged by a world that is anything but gentle. He banks the aircraft low, descending until the shadow of the bomber skims across the sand like a dark animal chasing its own reflection. The engines roar. The propellers cut the air into shimmering distortions. Then he fires. The 18 guns erupt in a single, coordinated roar. The vibration slams through the cockpit, rattling every instrument. And yet the aircraft holds steady, stubborn, resolute, hungry. Beneath him, the sand erupts in a path so straight and violent that it looks almost surgical, as if the earth itself has been opened by a blade of fire. When Hayes returns to base, he says little. But the small, satisfied nod he gives before disembarking is enough. The transformation works. Word spreads quickly. Across the Pacific, squadrons begin to request the modified B-25, seeing in its new design the possibility of changing the momentum of low-altitude warfare. Pilots who once climbed to altitude for safety now imagine skimming the waves to strike supply ships before they can scatter. Gunners imagine a front that no enemy aircraft dares to approach head-on, and commanders, studying maps lit by flickering lamps, imagine operations once dismissed as suicidal now rendered possible. The desert airfield becomes a birthplace, not just of a redesigned aircraft, but of a new philosophy of attack. It is a place where firepower becomes strategy, where engineering becomes survival, where courage becomes measurable not in speeches but in the cold, unyielding steel of 18 Brownings pointed toward the horizon. As the sun sets over the runway, turning the metal of the B-25 the color of embers hidden beneath ash, Hayes lingers by the nose of the bomber. He rests a hand on the armored plates, feeling the coolness of the metal beneath his palm. The aircraft seems to breathe in the settling quiet, as if preparing itself for the distant islands, the humid jungles, the black water straits where its true purpose will be revealed. For now, it waits, for orders, for war, for the first mission that will test not just its firepower, but the men who will take it into the teeth of danger. And somewhere far across the Pacific, the enemy fortifies another island, unaware that an American bomber has been reborn into something far more dangerous than anyone expected. A machine forged in desert silence, carrying the fury of 18 guns in its nose and the resolve of the men who built it.